Coming up, the first president of the Navajo Nation has died. We look back on the life of Peterson Zah. Plus, education advocates descended on the nation's capital last week to advocate for students. We have the developments. And Robert Mesa shares his latest in acting, art, and advocacy. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Amarawahopa. Thank you for joining us. We start our newscast off the coast of Florida, where NASA astronaut Nicole Mann is celebrating a mission complete. She and Crew 5 splashed down on Saturday evening just after 9 p.m. Eastern Time after more than 150 days in space. Earlier Saturday, the Dragon spacecraft, named Endurance, undocked from the International Space Station, then completed a series of maneuvers to bring the capsule safely to Earth. Several parachutes deployed to slow the spacecraft before splashing down into the ocean at a speed of 16 miles per hour. After that, several recovery ships were on hand to retrieve the spacecraft. The 4 astronauts of the Crew 5 mission included the first Native American woman in space, Nicole Mann, as well as American Josh Casada, Russian cosmonaut Anna Kikina, and Japan's Koichi Wakata. The crew traveled over 66 million miles during their mission, which is equivalent to 2,512 orbits around the Earth. While aboard the International Space Station, Mann took part in several science experiments, including a spacewalk. She also did several interviews about her Native heritage, including speaking to Native media and the Senate Indian Affairs Committee. After returning to Earth, the American astronauts were reunited with their families in Houston, Texas. ICT congratulates Commander Mann and her team on their safe journey home. In Colorado, the name change for Mount Evans will have to wait. Last week, the U.S. Board on Geographic Names was set to rename the iconic peak to Mount Blue Sky. That was after the state's governor and the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe endorsed the move. But Northern Cheyenne leaders say they were not consulted and they prefer a different name. That spurred the Geographic Name Board to postpone its vote and consult with the Northern Cheyenne first.
We don't object to renaming it the mountain, but we sure would like to have them seriously consider our recommendation from the tribal government that they consider renaming it Mount Cheyenne Arapaho. It would recognize both tribes, and it would avoid putting the term blue sky into the public, which is part of a sacred ceremony with the Cheyenne people.
The mountain peak is currently named after John Evans, who was territorial governor in 1864 when about 200 Cheyenne and Arapaho people were killed in the Sand Creek Massacre. You name it, and it was there. The annual Indigipop X event took place in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma over the weekend. Dakota McDowell Wapakichi has the latest.
Paintings to comic books to food, the 8th annual Indigipop X event went off with a bang.
I cannot be more over the moon with the number of folks that have shown up.
Over 500 people attended the event Friday and Saturday. The event's founders said vendors were running out of merchandise because of the number of people visiting.
I think they like seeing people. They love having young people in here. So yesterday, not as many people. So this is a nice, they're kind of just like, oh, people are coming. I was like, they're coming. So this is, rocking and rolling. I think they're all doing great. I know at least a couple of them are like, I've sold out of a lot of things. So I was like, that's what we like to hear.
People from all over traveled to Oklahoma City's First Americans Museum from New Mexico, Connecticut, and Texas. The 2023 Miss Indian Oklahoma Lily Painter traveled from Washington, D.C. to look at the boots and experience something she hadn't experienced before.
I actually really like seeing all the artists. I like knowing that they've come from, wherever they're from, New Mexico, Seattle, trying to come and spread their love for art, but also just kind of inspiring people to do their own art.
And the vendors had a great time. Super Indian comic creator Aragon Starr, whose parents met about 30 miles east of the museum, was signing autographs and talking about having Native representation in pop culture.
I am excited to be part of a contemporary culture and to exhibit that, Native people are still in the game, still doing what we do. And, yes, we love our traditional arts, we love our traditional regalia, we love the past, but we're also embracing the future. And that's kind of what this thing's about.
Now, all three of them say this year's event is one they'll remember.
This reemergence is the highlight of my weekend. This is exactly what I had been hoping for. I am just thrilled.
Kind of like out here blazing trails that are unblazed. We have Comic-Con, but it's never been really indigenized, and so coming in I was really excited.
This has been a really great experience and a really nice homecoming. I am so thrilled to see so many tribal people here.
In Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Dakota McDowell-Wapakichi, ICT News.
Well, the only federally recognized tribe in Alabama just went into business with NASA. A media production company owned by the Porch Band of Creek Indians has been selected to manage a contract valued at $217 million. PCI Productions will be managing communication services for all of NASA's divisions, including its headquarters. The massive effort will be coordinated out of the media company's offices in Huntsville, Alabama. CEO of the media company, Tim McEllie, spoke to ICT and says the sizable contract falls in line with the nation's 200 years of service providing.
If you go back in time and you look at the lineage of the Porch Band of Creek Indians, they've always, the tribe has always been focused on commerce and providing good high quality services and products to its customer base. And they've got a long history of this. It goes back 200 years. And this is just a progression of that.
A team of companies along with the PCI will begin providing critical communication services starting June 1st of 2023. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. The National Indian Education Association held its annual Hill Week in Washington, D.C. last week. It's an opportunity for Indigenous leaders to advocate for educational priorities. NIEA members and attendees heard from current members of Congress and other Capitol Hill representatives. Here to share the details and progress made at this year's Hill Week is NIEA Policy Director Julia Wakeford. Hi there, Julia.
Hi, and hello everyone for having me on.
I want to lay the groundwork here, so share the origin of NIEA's Hill Week.
Sure. So NIEA, in its origins, was created to advocate for all of our students, teachers, and youth, and tribal education departments across the country. And Hill Week is a logical step in that advocacy where we can connect the people who are experts on the ground, all of those educators and practitioners, with their elected representatives and federal partners so that their voices can be heard and put on display in the best way.
2023 marks 50 years since the Indian Education Act first became a law. How was that milestone celebrated at Hill Week this year?
Well, we had one of the largest Hill Weeks ever, and that was really exciting for us. We had a number of elected representatives from all across the country come to speak about what is up next. As well, we celebrated the passing of the Durban-Feeling Native Languages Act and the Native Language Resource Center Act with a celebration and a moving forward to see what is coming next. So I think that's really the way that we are celebrating 50 years, is about buckling down and focusing on what are we still in need of for our students, for our youth, for our children, and how can we best make all of that happen.
I'm really curious if you can describe in more detail what these educators were specifically asking for this year. You mentioned native languages being a priority, but what else was at the top of the list?
Absolutely. So alongside native languages, we're always focused on funding and making sure the trust responsibility is upheld in its entirety by the federal government. So really focusing on some of those oversight issues and trying to look into making sure all of the infrastructure across the nation, the buildings, the roads, everything are upheld. And then I know that a lot of our teachers and educators are concerned about educator shortages across the country. This is not just the case in Indian country, but everywhere. And it really feels more dire sometimes in our rural and remote areas. So focusing on what are the best pathways moving forward? How can we create teacher recruitment and retention initiatives? And what can we do to make sure that our own youth, our own college students are best equipped to be able to perhaps educate their own communities in their future careers?
Tell us about some of the policymakers, specifically the members of Congress who were able to join you this year.
Yeah, we were really excited to have both Representative Peltola and Senator Murkowski from Alaska. Everyone was really excited to see Congresswoman Peltola, as she is the first Alaska Native elected to Congress. And then we also had Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, who is the most recent senator and currently the only Native American senator in the country representing the state of Oklahoma, my home state. And then we also had Senator Elizabeth Warren to talk about the Broken Promises report and the bill that she is pushing called Honoring Promises, which would address every stipulation in the Human Rights Commission's Broken Promises report and try and uphold that trust responsibility. We also had Senator Tina Smith, who's been a longtime supporter of Native languages and Native education, and Senator Brian Schatz, of course, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs, came to talk about what's on deck for SCIA.
You know, Julia, what strikes me about that list of lawmakers is that they're both Democrats and Republicans. Was that something that was highlighted at Hill Week, sort of the bipartisan nature of Native education?
Absolutely. We always at NIEA focus on bipartisan relationships and how important it is to make sure that wherever our Native folks are in the country, that they are best advocated for and that they have a voice. And the way that we accomplish that is by focusing on that nation-to-nation relationship and not focusing on the politics of Democrats and Republicans.
We only have about a minute left here, but I do want to talk about what next steps are. We know that Hill Week is just a gathering for people to express their concerns and their thoughts, but what comes next after this?
What comes next is we start focusing on appropriations season. The president's budget report just came out on Thursday, and then we move forward with all of those big focuses on the numbers. We invite everyone to join us this fall in Albuquerque, where we will have our annual student days and teacher days alongside NIEA's annual conference. We're really excited to talk about both what is happening with on-the-ground curriculum as well as advocacy and how we continue to push forward.
Well, Julia Wakeford from the National Indian Education Association, thank you so much. Navajo elder and leader Peterson Zah died last week at age 85. He led the nation as chairman in the 1980s and was elected Navajo's first president after its government reorganized in the 1990s. Aside from politics, he had a storied career in education, including being the special advisor to the president on American Indian Affairs at Arizona State University. To many, he was a role model and mentor, including to Jaynie Parrish. We have this interview from January 2022 when Parrish sat down with Zah at his home in Window Rock, Arizona. At the time, he had just been honored by the Grand Canyon Trust for his service. She asked him what stood out in his career.
One of them is probably the development of the permanent fund for the Navajo Nation. As you know, the Navajo Nation lived off mineral lease income. They make mineral leases with companies such as coal and all of the other minerals that we have here on the res, including the one that I think that did a devastating job in a negative way, which is the uranium. And so they lived off the annual income of those companies making the lease payment that they have with the Navajo Nation. So when I became the tribal chair, I've heard a lot of complaints about some of those companies, and it will take you to a position that you need to establish, which is that maybe that's not a way to build a nation, because what we're trying to do on a Navajo is really build a nation that we like to work with. And so we decided as a group that what we should do is establish a permanent fund. That way we don't have to rely on income from mineral leases from companies, and we'll have our own money that we can generate through interest earned each year, and then leave the principal in safe places with the banks and trust companies. And that way we have a steady income that comes in each year to do the project that we need to do. We used to have around maybe 8, 9, 10,000. We're right over 15, almost 20,000 students that are applying for a scholarship. Of that number that we now have in college, even if you educate only 1 or 2, they get their degree, they're equipped to come back to the Navajo Nation. You never know how much they can do at those local school districts, for example. Organizing the community, organizing the youth, so that they don't have to sit around, not do anything, and idle. It's one of those things that I think they need to learn how to do, is to really create their own things that they have passion for, and just provide them with resources such as education and encouragement from families, their grandparents, and help them. Because even if you go on to college and get your degree or master's degree, you still don't really know what the local community wants done back in your community. So you need the advice, a sense of direction and an encouragement from the elderly people, because they live there all their life and they know what's needed. And all they need to do is work with the youth that's trained in the white man's ways to accomplish certain things. But when it comes to the local community and the Navajo people, they have to rely on that. One has to feel good when they are helping somebody. You have to have a passion for that. You can't say to yourself, well, they gave me all this problem, here's the way I'm going to solve it my way. You can't do that. You have to work with them. You have to also encourage them. The concept that they're able and capable and have the resources to resolve some of those issues. And so you put it back on them and say, okay, why don't we look at it? We, not me. And I think to people, that's really, really important, because they're helping resolve their own problem. It's almost just like any student. You don't tell a student and say, okay, to solve your problem, I want you to come here at 8 o'clock each morning, and then I'll teach you or I'll show you. You have to put some of that responsibility on their own shoulders.
Our next interview is an actor who knows what it's like to be in front of the camera as well as behind it. Robert Mesa has played Dr. Chi on Grey's Anatomy and recently appeared on the hit Fox drama Accused. While he's known for his on-screen work, there's a lot he does behind the scenes, from photography to art and advocacy. He joins us now virtually with more. Hi there, Robert.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. We're excited that you're here, and congratulations on your newest episode of Accused. Tell us about what that was like.
My experience of the show was so much fun. It was like the best summer camp filming with everybody on that team. It really was a dream team. Because it was just so much fun, and I still got to pinch myself that it's actually a real thing that's out there now, because it gives a voice to something that nobody ever gets to see on television and film. So.
And you actually, as I just mentioned, starred in Grey's Anatomy as well. How did that opportunity fall into your lap?
During COVID, when productions first started going back into filming, every actor got a ton of auditions. I did too. And it just so happened to be in the big pile of auditions, and I got it. And within about 3 or 5 days, I was back in California on the set, and that was it's very exhilarating, because I got to work with these iconic characters that people have grown to love and cherish over the past 20 years. And it was very special, because being the first Indigenous doctor on the show was just very heartwarming, because a lot of Indigenous brothers and sisters, go to medical school and they watch that show and, idolize that show, or just have a certain amount of respect for it. So it meant a lot to, everyone else, that they saw a piece of them being representative.
And aside from your work, being on TV, you're actually an artist behind the scenes. Tell us about your work, what you're working on right now.
What I'm working on right now, it's behind me in this little thing of clutter. But pretty much, I start off doing photography, and my artwork pretty much is hand-painted photographs of traditional dancers, and I also do fashion and other sorts of photography. But pretty much, I am revisiting a series that I made, which is all gold leaf hand-colored photographs. So that's what I'm currently working on, and gonna take a bit of a break and get ready for a few shows coming up in Los Angeles. So that's what I'm working on. So, yeah.
Are your fans ever surprised to learn that you're an artist?
Yeah. It's funny, because some people know me as a photographer or as an artist, or some people just know me as an actor, and then I will do a show or something, and it's kind of just mind-boggling to them that I can have both disciplines and everything. So yeah, it's a fun thing. I love it. And also, doing the artwork, it helps with my advocacy with all these other nonprofits that I'm a part of. So yeah.
I understand you actually recently did some stage work and some plays. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the playwright that I normally work with, she's Wonder Woman. Her name is Mary Catherine Nagel. She's also a working lawyer, and she helps with a lot of advocacy work for herself. But I've done a few shows for her. One was called Crossing Minnesota, and that was performed at the Portland Center stage with a few great actors that are in other productions as well. And that production was pretty much about how Sacagawea first met Lewis and Clark. And it tells the actual real story of how everything happened, which was wonderful, because if you've been to Portland, there's a Lewis and Clark College there. And it was great, telling the real story of what actually happened. And then another play I did for her was called Sovereignty, and it was based about the politics in Oklahoma, and that one's a fun one to check out. And the recent one was Mannahatta, and that was at the Yale Repertory Theater, and that pretty much told the story of how the Dutch came in and took over New York. So yeah, those are the bit of plays that I've done, and I can't wait to do more. So yeah.
Robert, you've mentioned several times now that advocacy is something that you're really passionate about. And in preparing for this interview, I thought it was really interesting because you've been very outspoken about Ukraine. Tell us about that.
So yeah, about actually after I filmed Accused, I had come back home to Santa Fe, and I rested for about 12 hours. And then I went to Ukraine. But prior to that, a few months before Me and a good friend of mine made a few connections here in Santa Fe because there was a lot of refugees that came in from Ukraine that are based here in Santa Fe and some of them in Albuquerque. And pretty much it started off using the clout from Grey's Anatomy to raise money for medical kits. And then that turned into raising money for drones to drop the medical kits off to the soldiers at the front. And those fundraisers were very, very good for everybody and it helped build a community here. But then we had to actually take them there. So after I got done filming Accused, I pretty much, took a nap and went back to the airport and went to Lviv. I was there for about 2 weeks with a good friend of mine and pretty much dispersed all the supplies that we had accumulated. And just as of a few weeks ago, me and a good friend of mine helped pass a memorial for the Ukrainians, and it's essentially saying that New Mexico legislature is in solidarity with Ukraine, and that's been lovely to see that grow to more people getting involved and helping out a bit. So yeah.
Well, Robert, we could talk about this all day, so you'll have to visit us again, but unfortunately we're out of time. Thank you so much for being here.
So much, yeah.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.